Welcome to the Right Synergy Show. We're talking words, workouts, and a warrior mentality to help you get healthier and more productive. I'm Sin, fantasy author and fitness competitor, and I'll be your coach on this journey. And in today's episode, we're actually discussing a journey, the hero's journey, and the power of storytelling, the impact of words. Now, authors, regardless of what genre, we often write about the hero's journey. But now, it is your turn to be the hero. To find out exactly how to do that, well, stay tuned. Let's dive right into it. It is showtime, Synergy. As we get started on our episode, let me ask you a question. Have you ever sat down to watch a YouTube video or gone on to listen to a podcast and the title is really compelling, and then you go into the episode and the host rambles on about everything else except for the topic? I don't know about you, but me, that makes me jump in right into the description and try to find the chapter headings so I can jump to the piece of content that I actually was looking for that was supposed to be relevant in the title. Only when you do that, it's still not relevant. It's something else entirely. So without further ado, I'm jumping right into what the object of this episode is to spare you. Now, I'm hoping to bring you valuable information throughout this particular show. So, stay tuned to the end. But the topic of today's show, like I said, is the power of storytelling and more specifically, the hero's journey. Now, what do I mean by that? What is the hero's journey? Well, if you're not a writer familiar with that term, the hero's journey is actually many things. It could be the chosen one story. It could be a villain turned good. But essentially what it means is the hero is the central character to the story. Now, even if you have multiple points of view within a story, say Game of Thrones or something like that, there's always that one character that usually resonates much, much better with the audience than, say, some of the other ones. Now, that hero in this particular topic is you. So this is your journey. This is your story that we're laying out. And we're going to talk about the ways that the story that you tell yourself is actually impacting your life and your future. Words have power. And I'll give you a case in point. So I was out walking and talking with a gentleman that I know, and we were discussing bodybuilding because that's something that we had in common. And I recall very vividly that he said something along the lines of, yeah, I don't do that stuff anymore. Right now, it's all about just getting the check, paying the bills, and surviving. Now, I had to take a step back when he said that because the word surviving stuck out to me. It's a very negative connotation. Survival, actually, if you really break it down, survival is something that is when your life's in imminent danger, you are surviving. To say you're just surviving life, it really puts you in a different headspace than you want to be in. Because again, words have power. The story you're telling yourself is going to impact your choices down the road. So to say that you're in survival mode, to be perfectly honest, it actually stresses out your system. You're constantly in a state of defense. And I understand completely that a lot of people feel like that right now. Things are still tough all over. They're getting ironed out a little bit here and there, but some people are still feeling the pinch and the struggle of the last 4 years. But again, the story that you're telling yourself is if you're just trying to survive, how are you getting out of that? And if it's all coming down to that particular paycheck, what happens when that income is no longer coming in? What happens if you lose your job? Then are you surviving? What happens then? Because you've been telling yourself you're surviving this whole time. Now, that particular anchor that you've been clinging to, you no longer have it. So what does that mean if you're not getting that currency anymore? What's the story you tell yourself now? You've failed? No. We're not going to use that language anymore because the words have power. As writers, we know this. And it's, again, the story that you're telling yourself is going to bring up different images in your mindset. The old adage is, whether you say you can or you say you can't, you're right. So when you're laying out your own hero's journey, what does that look like to you? Are you in survival mode? Or are you the chosen one? Are you the one that's going to break free from your family dynamic and you're going to be the success? You're going to be the first one to go to school. You're going to be the first one to open their own business. Whatever it may be. What is your story? Now, if you're telling yourself something along the lines of, again, I'm going to be the first one to survive, let's wash that stuff away right now because it's doing you no good. You need to change your dynamic. You need to change what it is that you see as your mental story unfolding. That's not to say that the hero's journey is going to be easy by any means. Absolutely not. In writing, we know that when we're doing novels, it's going to ebb and flow. It's very frustrating to me when I hear social media gurus always talking about how everything is linear, how if you do A, you get to B, and you C, blah, 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 blah. That does not happen in the real world. The real world is like a story. It unfolds in chapters of your life, and it goes up and down. There's climaxes, and then there's valleys, peaks and valleys. And that's just the way that life is. Nobody's life is linear. That's bullshit. Okay, but it's when you're in these valleys, in these hard times, that's the point in the story where the hero is actually gathering strength because they're going to rise up in the back half of the novel and they're going to save the day or get the girl or what have you. Again, whatever story you're telling yourself, this is the time where the hero's gathering the strength to do that. Now, I'll give you an example of a real life obstacle. When I was competing in fitness, my very first time out on the obstacle course, there was a 15 to 20 foot cargo net that we have to climb, flip over, drop down, and so I wound up spraining my ankle grade 2. Now, this was not the end of the course, so I really wanted to finish. This was my first time out. I didn't want to throw in the towel by any means. But at the back end of that, there was like 3 hurdles and another long distance that you had to run through. But in my head, I just wanted to finish. You want to finish your story. Now, granted, I went around those obstacles, but in life, sometimes you have to barrel right through them. Another example of this in the world of fitness, because, that's what we're doing here. We're marrying words and workouts. Another part of the competition, and this was the year later, was an event called the box jump. So it was 50 reps jumping up and down on this wooden box because we didn't have the fancy CrossFit ones that they have nowadays, which are nice and soft and plush, and you can do many fun things on those. No, these were made of wood. So round about maybe 20, 25 reps in on this box 4 times, I miss. And I slam both shins into the side of this box. Now you can imagine how bad that hurts. It was sort of like somebody taking a baseball bat to them. And I literally still have the stigmata marks in my flesh from that day because it peeled the skin right off of it. So the initial impact of that shocked my system. And I said, oh no, I'm done with that, I said. And I tried to just quit, do not finish at that point. And I had my teammates around me. And they started screaming at me. They started saying, don't you dare quit. You finish. You finish what you started. You finish the race. And so I did. I actually, you were allowed to run up the box at that point. So it was 1 foot after the other just to get a time on the boards. So say you're faced with a particular challenge right now. You are in a chapter of your life that is not conducive to what you had planned for your future. Does that mean that you're going to quit? You're going to curl up right there on that page? You're not going to finish that story? Oh, no. You're going to find a way through or around, but you're going to finish. There are difficulties along the way in life, but if you have the perseverance and the strength to get through them, you're going to be rewarded on the other side of that. So the higher the mountain, the deeper the river, the greater the reward and the sweeter the victory. So the important thing that you need to realize within this hero's journey and how the words that and the story that you're telling yourself is affecting you is you got to change your focus. If the story that you're telling yourself has been negative this whole time, you got to change your focus. What's going to be your happy ending? What are the goals that you are after, and how are you going to reach them? Well, we start at the end and we work ourselves backwards. If you've ever written a novel and maybe even a thesis, a paper, something like that, we outline. Now, some of us go off the cuff, but more often than not, we outline the book. And again, more often than not, we start at the end and we work our way backwards. And we start putting in the inciting incidents, they're called, to get to that ending. For you in your life's journey, you're going to start with that end goal. Now, this doesn't mean it need to be your life's end goal. You can have little goals all along the way of your story, but you have to have a goal. You have to have a purpose in life. Otherwise, again, you're just getting up and getting a paycheck and surviving, like that guy I was talking about in the beginning. I have sought purpose many, many times because life is short and you don't want to be stuck as a side character in somebody else's story. So the first thing that you need to do is figure out your goals and what is your end game. And then you work backwards to decide how to get to that goal. So say one of your goals is you want to run a marathon. That's your end game. That's your end goal. Then you would go back and you would fill in the chapters on how you want to reach that goal and the story that it's going to be for you to get to that marathon, whether it's starting with, just getting up in the morning and going for a walk, putting in the time after work to go on a treadmill, learning about proper running positions, whatever steps you need to take to get to the end of that story, you're going to take them. Those are going to be your chapters. Okay. Chapters in life, they're always different. Like I said, they always ebb and flow. But you have to put in the work up front to get the rewards down the line. Consistent action will compound over time, and it'll bring you to your end result. Like I said, you're doing the certain steps to get to running that marathon. Those are actions that are compounding to get you to your end goal, to get to that end of that story, that particular small story, like your B story. Your main story is going to be something all-encompassing. For instance, and this is getting real deep, the person you want to become. Okay? And a lot of that is also the story that you tell yourself, because as we go through life, when we're going after goals, often it's not in reaching them that we become successful. It's the person that we become as we are headed towards those goals. So it's in the journey. It's the hero's journey, remember. But also remember this. There's a great quote. It says something along the lines of, don't complain about the results you didn't get from the work you didn't put in, which means you got to do the work. Whatever goal that you're chasing, whatever that ending of your story that you want to reach, you have to put the work in, because nobody's coming to save you. And if you're stuck in the middle of somebody else's story and surviving, you're going to have to do a lot of work. But trust me when I tell you that you can, like I said, find a way or make a way, because life is too short to sit on the sidelines and just wait for something to happen. Do it now, because we think we can wait on things. Even important things, we put it off. We can't wait on things. Life goes by like that. And you need to figure out what kind of story that you're telling yourself and the person that you want to be at the end of it. So don't have a defeatist attitude, the survival mechanism that kicks in. Embrace that struggle. I understand there's struggle going on, but embrace it and use it as fuel to move you. Momentum is a hell of a thing to keep you going from A to B and finishing your story. And while you're doing the work, while you're putting in the work daily, you might not see results immediately. That's no reason to give up. Do not quit on your story in the middle of the book or the chapter. It's compounding. It's compounded interest. Like when you put money in the bank, you don't see the earnings like overnight. They compound. That's the same thing with actions you put in. Say you're working out, you're not going to see the results immediately, but things are happening. A great example of it is like you plant flowers or vegetables or something like that. They don't sprout up immediately. You have to put in work and take care of them to see them grow. And that's the same thing with your life. You have to do work consistently. Consistency to build compound interest towards this goal that you're after. And that is what we call long-term storytelling. A great example of that is going to come from the world of professional wrestling, which I am going to reference on this channel quite a bit because it correlates a lot with writing and workouts and warriors. So one of the characters or the people, because we're crossing lines here with realism and the fiction of that is professional wrestling, but the current world champion Cody Rhodes had a very famous slogan all through last year and the year before. It was "Finish the story." So what that meant to him was his father, Dusty Rhodes, was a very famous professional wrestler back in the day. And Dusty never held the world championship. So for Cody, his goal and the end to his story that he wanted to finish was to capture that professional wrestling title in honor of his father, who never got to hold it. So Cody actually had this goal in mind since he was very young, and he wound up working for World Wrestling Entertainment. And then things did not exactly pan out exactly how he wanted them to. And Cody was stuck in a chapter of his life that he didn't like. So instead of staying in that story and finishing some ending that he wasn't really enthused about, he decided to rewrite his story. And he left the biggest wrestling company in the world, and he bet on himself, and he went out and he reinvented himself. He started a new story. So that's something you have to keep in mind. So if you've been going along on a trajectory this whole time and it's not where you want to be, you can always start a new story. Yeah, it's going to be scary and it'll be hard, but it'll be worth it. Because it was worth it for Cody Rhodes. He wound up coming back to World Wrestling Entertainment, and he wound up capturing that title. And he did what he set out to do, and he finished his story. So this is like I said, it's blurring the lines with wrestling because this was actually a true story that was woven into the storytelling of the professional wrestling drama. But it was actually, in reality, it was true. So another example of fiction blurring the lines with reality is the film Queen of the Ring, which highlights Mildred Burke, which was one of the very first female professional wrestlers in the world. And I believe they said she was the first millionaire athlete. So Mildred Burke, if you don't know the story, she started doing female wrestling back in the day when it was actually illegal. It wasn't just like not exciting or people weren't interested. It was illegal. So imagine her going out and saying, no, this is going to be my story and I'm going to do exactly what I set out to do. And again, a lot of hurdles along the way, but if it wasn't for Mildred Burke doing that back in those days, there would be no professional women's wrestling today. So it always takes that one person to stand out from the crowd and say, hey, I'm going to do this. And, when was the last time you looked in the mirror and said that person was going to be you? This is the whole point of this whole journey that we've been on so far is this is your story. You are the hero of your own story. And make no mistake, no one's coming to save you. No one's coming to do a rewrite for you. There's not going to be any edits at the end of this thing. You need to figure out the languages that you're telling yourself the story in your head. And if it's a bad one, change it. Get rid of that old story and focus on the new one. Because, like I said, time is fleeting. And it's your opportunity now, in the here and now, to get up and go after exactly what you want. It's never been a better time to do that. You know, you have all the resources at your fingertips. But if you need a plan, yeah, I'm here to help you. So let's dive into it. Some of the things that the people in professional wrestling have that elevates them to certain successes is they have an alter ego. And I've seen that time and again with other people. If you're familiar with David Goggins, he invented what he calls Goggins. And it's just a framework and a mindset that he can shift into, and it helps him to conquer whatever challenge is in front of him. So think of it as your Superman to your Clark Kent. Maybe your current story right now is mild-mannered Clark Kent, who works at the Daily Planet and is a good, solid worker and so forth. But deep inside, you know you're Superman, and you're wanting to burst free and do so much more in this life that it's just ripping at the seams, and you want to tear that suit open and show that big S logo. So an alter ego actually just helps you to amp up the volume on the traits that you already have, and it helps you to get past whatever hurdles that are in front of you. It's a way to ignite whatever you need at the time, like confidence or strength of mind, so forth. It just takes your attributes and turns the volume up on them, and that's why a lot of the wrestlers can tap into those characters, and it becomes compelling because it's a version of themselves that is just dialed way up. So that's your first step. Get yourself an alter ego that can barrel through these obstacles that might come along the ways and interrupt your story. The next thing to do is to celebrate your small victories. Now, you remember how I told you that your goal setting is your chapters geared towards your main goal, which is the end of the particular story. So say you started out, running consistently to get to that marathon, which was your end goal. Well, that's a small win. So celebrate it. And by celebrate, I don't mean go out and indulge in like cake or alcohol or something like that. I just mean give yourself the satisfaction and saying, pump yourself up a little bit. People don't do that. I mean, they do it all day long on social media, but those are curated and fake. I'm talking about when you are consistent in your efforts, reward yourself. It's okay to be like, hey, good job. Let me pat myself on the back. I did that. I conquered that. Don't ever let anyone dim that shine of yours. I have seen so many writers, like, they finish writing a book and they get one negative review and crawl into a hole. No. Finishing the book in and of itself is an accomplishment. You be proud of that fact. So celebrate your small wins. The next thing you can do is have an attitude of gratitude. Remember, the words that you tell yourself, they have power. And if you're in a negative, defeatist attitude, it's going to lead you down a wrong path, and you're going to find yourself in like a bad part of the story that you don't want to be in. It's like the old choose your own adventure books. You've chosen the wrong path going down that negative route. So one way that you can absolve yourself of that negativity is by having an attitude of gratitude. Just wake up in the morning, find something that you can be grateful for, like your health or the fact that you have a home that you woke up in. There's so many things. Don't tell me that there's nothing, because you have breath in your body and you woke up for another day. I mean, start there. Before you go to sleep at night, do the same thing. What happened during that day that you were grateful for. And even if, if something bad happened, use it. What lesson can I learn in that? What can I be grateful to have learned in that lesson? There's always something. So, attitude of gratitude. And the last thing as we close out this chapter, as we say, again, this is a hero's journey and this is storytelling. So outline your story. As authors, we outline. Like I said, you're going to get an outline. You're going to do different chapters, different end goals, and you're going to, start backwards, like I said. So what is something that you have been putting off that you've been wanting to do and you just I don't have time? That's the number one excuse, by the way. I don't have time. Well, make time. Could you maybe not watch Netflix all night? Could you get up earlier? Could you stay up a little later? Remember, this is your life we're talking about, and it's not promised, let's just say. And, you'd be remiss if you didn't at least try. We always regret the things that we didn't try. We don't regret trying and failing, because if you try and fail, at least you have a reference point now, and you can go back and you can try again. But, so my goal for you in this episode is to really, focus on the story that you're telling yourself. Is it helping you or is it hindering you? And if you find that it is not a good story, let's go ahead and rewrite that story. And finally be the hero of your own story and get started on that hero's journey, because guess what? At the end, you've got a sweet reward waiting for you at the end of that story. And the reward is who you became on that journey. So that's going to be the show for today. If you, as I said, I'm your coach on this journey. So if you need extra help, in the comments, you're going to find a couple of links to my guidebooks, Writing Warrior, that just came out, which just covers all of this, especially the alter ego part. I go more in depth into how you can establish that for yourself. And also, as we get deeper into this wellness journey, I have the Healthy Habit Toolkit, absolutely free to download, just to get you started and get you, going on the right path. So thank you for joining me here. Going to start cranking these out and helping you find your health and motivation, because it's body and mind and it works in synergy. And when that happens, you're stronger. So remember that feeling your best fuels creativity, and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you come back for the next episode, because we're going to have more of these gems, and I hope to see you real soon. Show's over, Synergy.